It all began when Clara and her friends found the old mansion on the outskirts of town. It had stood empty for as long as anyone could remember, and its eerie silhouette always seemed to be watching them. The stories about the house were well known. Those who ventured inside were never heard from again. But Clara was different. She was brave, and that's why she was the one to dare her friends to enter. "It's just a house," she said, her voice almost daring anyone to argue. "Let's see what the fuss is about." Her friends, Jason, Lily, and Mark, hesitated, but curiosity got the better of them. The door creaked as they stepped inside, the cold air brushing against their skin like an unseen hand. "I don't like this," Lily muttered, her voice trembling. But Clara was already walking ahead. "Come on, there's nothing here, just a bunch of old furniture." They followed her down the hallway, the sound of their footsteps unnervingly loud in the silence. At the end of the hall, there was a door, unlike any other in the house. The door was made of dark wood, its surface carved with strange symbols. It seemed out of place in a house so dilapidated, so forgotten. "That doesn't look right," Jason said, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara grinned. "What, scared? It's just a door." When Clara touched the door handle, it felt warm, as though something inside was waiting. The door opened with a low groan, revealing a dimly lit room that seemed to stretch far beyond what was possible for a house of this size. Inside, the walls were covered with strange, flickering symbols. The air was thick, heavy, as if it were alive. Shadows moved, though there was no light source to cast them. Clara took a step forward, her footfall swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. "What is this place?" Mark's voice broke the silence, but there was an edge of fear to it. "I don't know," Clara said, eyes wide, "but we have to see it through." They entered, but the moment they did, the door slammed shut behind them. The room was now bathed in an unnatural, sickly green light. The shadows, once lurking at the edges of the room, began to grow, twisting into dark forms. The air grew colder, and then they heard it, the whispers. "Leave this place, leave now, before it is too late." Clara felt a chill crawl down her spine, but her curiosity pushed her forward. "We need to find out what's going on." As they moved deeper into the room, the shadows began to shift more rapidly. They could no longer tell where the walls ended and the darkness began. Mark swore he saw figures, humanoid shapes, moving just out of the corner of his eye. "Clara, we need to go," Lily shouted, but Clara was already walking towards the far end of the room, her gaze fixed on something beyond the darkness. Suddenly, the shadows twisted violently. They formed into dark, twisted shapes, fingers, hands, and limbs reaching out like a monstrous wave. "Clara, run!" Jason screamed, grabbing her arm, pulling her away from the growing mass of darkness. But it was too late. The shadows moved faster than they could react, wrapping around them like a web. The walls seemed to close in, and the air thickened until it was impossible to breathe. Then the voices stopped. The room was dead silent. The silence was broken by a low growl, almost like the rumbling of thunder. But it wasn't the sound of nature. It was a voice, deep and primal. From the center of the room, something rose from the shadows. It was tall, its body made entirely of twisting, writhing shadows. Eyes glowed with a sickly yellow hue, and its jagged teeth glinted as it opened its mouth to speak. "You should not have come," it hissed, its voice reverberating in their minds. "You opened the door. Now you belong to the shadows." Lily screamed as the creature lunged at them. It was fast, faster than anything they had ever seen, and its claws were like daggers. Jason shoved Lily toward the door, but the shadows grabbed him, pulling him back into the dark mass. "Help him!" Lily cried, But Mark and Clara could only watch in horror as Jason was swallowed by the creature. The creature turned toward Clara and Lily, its gaze cold and unfeeling. It reached for them, but just as it was about to strike, Clara's eyes fell on a faint light in the distance, a crack in the shadows. She grabbed Lily's hand and ran toward it, the creature hot on their heels. But just as they reached the edge of the room, a terrible shriek echoed, and the shadows surged forward, trying to pull them back into the darkness. Clara pushed Lily through the crack, and the door slammed shut behind them. They were outside, back in the hallway. But the house was different now. It was darker, colder. The walls seemed to pulse with life, and from behind them, they could hear the thing calling to them. Clara and Lily stumbled toward the front door, desperate to escape. As they reached for the handle, the door swung open on its own. But standing in the doorway was the creature, its yellow eyes burning into theirs. "You cannot leave," it growled. "Not until you join the shadows." Lily backed away in fear, but Clara stood her ground. "We will leave. You can't keep us here." But as the creature reached for her, Clara realized the truth. It wasn't just a door. It was a trap, and they had opened it. In one final act of desperation, Clara shoved Lily through the door and slammed it behind her. The creature screamed in fury, but Clara was gone. She never saw Lily again,